Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are watching us from. Welcome to the second edition of SEDAT HR Digest. It's good to have you here. If you are here, please let us know. Just leave your name and then where you are watching us from in the comment section so that we can properly acknowledge you. Thank you for joining us. SEDAT HR Digest is brought to you by SEDAT Consult with support from FA Impressions. You can contact FA Impressions on 0243 526781 for all your branding and printing needs. Today we are here to discuss a very important topic, a topic that is very dear to my heart: performance management, managing performance at the workplace. How do we ensure, or what is it at all? We have here Kojo Vanessa, who will help us understand the subject of performance management at the workplace. But before I bring him on, let me take the opportunity to introduce to you our upcoming training on performance management, which is happening from the 17th to the 18th of November 2022 at the Crystal Palm Hotel. It's a 2-day performance management training program, and it is aimed at equipping our participants to have the hands-on skills on how to prepare or develop an effective performance management, and then also see through its implementation to make sure that your workers are giving you the desired result. We will share the link with you in the comment section so you can click on it and then register, or you can call us on 0244 629245 and register after this program. So we'll leave the phone number in the comment section as well. If you are here, let me know that you are here. I want to acknowledge you especially for joining us. So before Kojo comes in, Kojo is a performance management expert. He's a strategic HR management consultant. He has a wealth of experience when it comes to HR, particularly in the areas of performance management, compensation and benefit management, talent management. And in many organizations, he's been the one who has put together a performance management system and seen to its implementation. And so having a discussion with him is just in order. He's just the right person to have this conversation with. I see you, Zachary Salamat. Thank you for joining. I see you, Augustine. I see you, Nelly Goka. Thank you for joining us. Yes, and Kojo is very passionate about performance management. One thing I realized about him is that he keeps giving and giving and giving. And I'm so happy that in spite of his busy schedule, he wears 2 hats, I think 3. I don't want to say that here. So his Sundays are usually very packed, but he made time to join us. Thank you for Kojo for joining us, and you are welcome. So let's have Kojo in the studio as we begin the conversation. Wow, Kojo, good to have you.
Yeah, good to be here, Patricia. Good evening. Good evening to your listeners, your social media. Do we even call it viewers or we call it
Participants.
your participants? Good evening to the netizens. They say now they are called netizens. So we are called
Oh,
citizens. Those on the internet are called netizens. So good evening to the
oh,
netizens.
wow.
Yep.
Great. Cletus, I see you. Thank you for joining us. You were here last week. Joyce, I see you. Kofi, Semeshia, I see you. Thank you for joining us. Kojo, let's begin the conversation. We are talking about performance management at the workplace. So help us, to understand, assuming that we don't know anything about performance management at all, help us to understand, or in your view, what performance management is and why we must even care about performance management, especially as it pertains to the workplace.
Okay, so I would attempt to do this without necessarily sounding too theoretical. I would want to
Of
be as
course.
practical as possible so people can relate with it.
That's the Kojo I
So,
know. It's allowed.
so when you speak about performance management, you can look at it from two perspectives. You can look at it from the perspective or the viewpoint of the organization, and you can look at it from the perspective of the viewpoint of the individual or the employee. And so, if you're looking at it from the perspective of the organization, then basically, when we talk about performance management, it's about defining strategies, measuring the achievement of the strategy, and making sure the strategy is achieved. That is, if you're talking about it from the corporate or the organization point of view. If you're talking about it from the employee point of view, then it's basically linking the work of an employee to the goal of the organization and making sure there's an alignment. That is from the point of view of the employee. So it depends on where you want to look at. And maybe throughout our discussion, I'll be making that distinction because there is performance management when it comes to the employee and when it comes to the organization itself. How the organization looks at it and how the organization expects it to cascade to the employee are two things we need to discuss when we're talking about performance management. So yes, if it's at the organization level, we're talking about you having a strategy that's defining the strategy, measuring the achievement of the strategy, and making sure that you achieve the strategy. If it's at the individual level, picking the individual's work and linking it to the organizational goal and making sure there's an alignment. Then we talk about performance management. Now you ask why we think or why is it important? Well, it's just like you sitting in a car, desiring that you want to move to Kumasi. When you move the car, your objective or your end goal is to get to Kumasi. However, on the way, you need to check, even before you move, you need to check whether you have enough fuel in your car. You need to make sure the pressure in your car tires are good enough. You need to make sure that the temperature is low enough. It's not overheating. You need to do a lot of checks for you to be sure that this journey you are about to embark on, you can go. Halfway through the journey, you need to also check whether the fuel that is left in your car is enough to even take you to the end. And so these checks are important because you expect to want to get to where you have destined or where you have planned to get to within the desired time. And that is what performance management does, making sure that your end goal or your set goal, you are able to achieve it with the activities that you have put in place. Else, you would go through the year, get to the end of the year, and realize that you've derailed. You've actually worked throughout the year, but you've actually achieved nothing. So basically, yes, I would say that's why it's important. Patricia.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for that. Enoch has a question. I don't know if we should answer it or we should wait when we get to there. So I think I'll put it down. Enoch, I see your question. I'll put it down. And then when it gets to Q&A, will answer that. And I'm sure it will also benefit a lot more people. So thank you for that question. Prince, thank you for joining us. Elizabeth, thank you. Dorcas, thank you for joining us. Right, Kojo, let's look at performance management systems. Are there performance management systems that organization can either adopt or adapt to ensure that they achieve what you talk about? And I don't know, maybe you can also tie into Enoch question. Enoch was asking, explain how the linking is done. You talk about individual, you talk about organization. He's asking how the linking will be done. But so let's look at it. If the system that you have in place can help us achieve that.
Right. Okay. So I'm sure maybe when I'm explaining the systems, I'll be able to speak to Enoch's question. Okay. So again, remember at the beginning I mentioned that when it comes to performance management, you can look at it from the organization's point of view and you can look at it from the employee's point of view. And it's the same with the system. And so let me first start tackling the system when it comes to the organization point of view. Now, when it comes to the organization point of view, there are basically some three performance management systems that you can employ. One common one a lot of people know is the balanced scorecard. So as practical as I can sound, when we talk about balanced scorecard, it's saying that when you want to evaluate performance, when you want to set performance objectives, when you want to manage performance, your focus should not only be on the financial end result, or if it's a product you are producing, the end product alone. It says that concentrate on how people relate with each other in the company. So somebody can be working, the person is delivering the results you want, but nobody wants to work with that person because when the person is in the team, the person is very insulting, the person is very rude. You need to take that into consideration because people are not islands in companies. So scorecard says that the balanced scorecard says don't just look at the end result, but look at the relations with people internally. Look at how even the person uses the internal processes to achieve the end. How much waste did the person make before getting the product at the end? Don't just look like, well, he was supposed to make a product and he's made a product. What processes did he go through? If it's quality, health, and safety, what quality measures did the person abide or comply with to be able to come out with the product that he or she came with? If it's a financial institution, what regulatory obligations did the person comply with before they came out with what they came out with? Again, he says that if the person's work desires that the person relates with customers, how does the person relate with customers? You need to measure that also. Don't just say, well, he insults the customers, but he gives them what they want. If the person is rude to customers, he might give them what they want today. He might be achieving his set objective or targets, but after a period of time, customers will not come back as repeat customers, and it would affect. And so balanced scorecard says that weigh all these let's say components, assign weights to each of them and make sure that every one of them is a priority. So that's what the balanced scorecard says. There's another system called the management by objective, the NBO. A lot of institutions use MBO. MBO basically is saying that set an objective, cascade that objective down, and let everybody have what role they are supposed to play to achieve that objective. And so if you're saying that the objective of the company is that this year we would want to make a profit of, let's say, 50 million, that is the overall objective. Finance will come in. Okay, if we want to make 50 million, we need to keep an expense or an overhead expense of, let's say, 10 million and make sure that we are making revenue of 60 million. That is finance. Finance sets that objective and out of that builds its KPI for its team members. HR comes in and says, okay, for us to be able to get this amount finance is saying, we will need this number of employees of this number of this quality. HR also sets its objective. Procurement also comes in and says that, okay, for us to be able to achieve what you're saying, we need to make sure everybody who is working has a car. So we need to procure this amount of cars. Then finance says, well, if you want to procure the cars, make sure it's within the overhead of 10 million. So you set an overall objective, and everybody down the chain now picks an objective that ties into the overall objective at the top. And that is management by objective. So each person or each department or each unit has an objective, which is a subset of the overall objective of the company. So that's the second one. Then the third one is how best can I mention it? You can call it a finance-driven system, or you can call it a budget-driven system, where finance is the one that determines everything. So finance says that, look, this year we have a budget of this amount to spend. And so everything you are doing it with the mindset that you can't go beyond this financial limit. You can't go beyond this budget amount. A lot of institutions don't do the budget ones in this part of our world, but in other jurisdictions, it's very important, especially because of where finance sits. So at the beginning of the year, finance comes and say, this is our target, this is our expense target, this is our overhead cost budget, this is our revenue budget, and everybody has to run with that one. So no matter the activities you plan to do, if that year you decide that, okay, maybe this year we need to buy 10 cars, you have to make sure how much is allocated to you. Then out of that one, you decide, okay, even though we want 10 cars, because of how much is desired or allocated to us, we can just do only 5 cars. So originally that would not have been your objective, but because it is finance-driven or budget-driven, you end up having to set your objective or your strategies in line with the finance or the budget. And so that's the system for the employer side or the corporate side. Now, when it comes to the employee side, there's one very common one known as objective, and it's called the OKR. The OKR, yes, the objective and key results, yes. What it says basically is that anytime you are setting an objective for somebody, what you should ask yourself is, what do I expect to achieve at the end? What do I expect to achieve at the end? What results do I need? And it's a very, very, very simple and easy one to use. And I'm sure it would answer Enoch's question. And so when you're setting an objective for an employee, the work of the employee, you, the manager, you're asking the person, what do I want to see this employee do for me to say the employee has done the work? So if I'm saying that, okay, I need you to prepare a report. If the person brings a report and there are a lot of mistakes in there, he's brought the report. If the person brings the report and you'd have to write everything all over again, well, you told the person he needs to bring the report. But OKR says that you need to tell the person that bring a report that is with 10% errors, or bring a report that is 2% errors. What I expect of that objective is that the report that comes to me has 2% errors. If a report comes and it has 10% or 5% errors, it is not what I expected. And so that is OKR. You have an objective, and then you have the key results you are expecting of that person. And that's very important. I'm sure in subsequent questions, if there are any, we would explain this better. But then the last one is it's related to OKR in a way, but it's more of a human-driven or a human review-driven system, where you're not only focused on the core job, but you're focused on the soft side also. So you set objectives on skills the person needs to improve on, set on trainings you expect the person to attend. Because believe you me, if you leave people, we can work like machines and just go. But then if you said, okay, by the end of the year, you should have gone for an Excel training, you should have grown your Excel knowledge from basic to intermediate, you should be able to do VLOOKUP in Excel, you should be able to be doing ABCD. And that is also an objective that you would measure at the end. So these are some few systems that we can employ. Of course, like we normally say, if you want the fine details, there's so little we can say online, but if you want the fine details at the end, so that is always available to contact them to do the fine details for you. So Enoch, I hope I've been able to answer your question. If not, you can just put another clarification on the comments and I'll speak to it.
Right. Thank you, Kojo. Vera, I see you. Michael, I see you. Okay. Emmanuel, hi. I see you. Right. So we'll just go for a quick break. When we come back, Kojo, help us through a typical performance management system. How to the start from the finish. And then we can see which ones we can adopt and which ones can help us achieve the target that we set for. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. right, welcome back. Elizabeth said, Van, that is Kojo, is indeed a guru in performance management. Wow. Miss Lay said, very insightful. Thank you. So join us on the 17th and the 18th. We're going to have a performance management workshop. Very fine details will be discussed there. Kojo will take you through the step-by-step process. You will build your own performance management system that will be workable within your organization. Kojo, so let's go through the process. Take us through a typical performance management process.
Okay, so normally for a performance management process, let's say you start with the whole organization having a strategy. What is it that we want to achieve this year? It's always important that what every individual does is connected to what the top wants to do. So that's where it starts from. Now, once everybody knows, or once the organization has set what they want to do, every department or every division, depending on how your organization is structured, will pick which portion belongs to you or which portion applies to you. So from that point, you start with certain objectives for each team member, and that's the KPI setting, where you're supposed to tell people what they are supposed to do. And that's the important thing about KPI, what they are supposed to do, when they are supposed to do it, and how they are supposed to do it. The difference between a KPI and a job description is that a job description only tells you what you're supposed to do. So job description will tell you that you are expected to come to work every day. KPI will tell you that come to work every day. When am I supposed to come to work? At 8 a.m. And what am I supposed to wear to come to work? Come to work in a suit and tie. And that's the difference between a KPI and a job description. The job description just tells you come to work, or you're expected to come to work. You're expected to do A, B, and C. But KPI breaks it down to let you know what you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, and how you're supposed to do it. So first you set the KPI. Now, when you set the KPI, you meet and discuss with the person that the KPI applies to. Make sure the person understands what is expected of him or her. At this stage, you need to let the person understand that what is it that you expect of every deliverable that you would use or you would count as work being done. The most dangerous thing is for you to have a deliverable that you, the one giving the deliverable, have a different expectation. And the person who is supposed to deliver also has a different expectation. So I'm telling you to come to work. You are thinking it's 9 o'clock. I'm thinking it's 8 o'clock. At the time when it gets to the time of appraisal, we would have a confusion and there will be no agreement at that point. So it's important from day one, every clarification is done for everybody to understand what is expected. Then both of you sign the document and it's on file. Now, the next step would be to have periodic reviews. Periodic review is important because when you sit in a car and you're driving to Kumasi, you don't close your eye and think that your fuel will take you there, even if it's a full tank. Along the way, you still glance at your fuel gauge to make sure that what is left, do you need to top up? Do you need to keep the same fuel because it can take you to Kumasi? You look at your temperature gauge to make sure that the temperature in the car is good. It's not above the required. You do all those checks. And that is the same check we do with performance management. What I've noticed a lot of people is they set KPI at the beginning of the year. Within the year, there's no periodic review. They wait at the end of the year. They are telling you, well, in January, you made a certain mistake. And so I'm penalizing you in December. If you had told the person in January he made a mistake, in February, he would have corrected. If you had, or maybe the person even didn't have a better understanding of what you expected of him or her. And so periodic reviews are important. You can do quarterly periodic, you can do half-yearly periodic, you can do monthly periodic, depending on the competence of the person you are evaluating. But it's important that you do periodic review and give feedback for them to know that, okay, the way you're going, if you go the same way, we'll end the year on a good note. If you don't go the same way, if you change, this will happen. If you maintain how you're going, you might not be able to achieve. Now, and after that, and the person is doing the work, they're supposed to have your appraisal proper. Now, the appraisal should be done in 2 ways. The person needs to self-appraise and then now bring to you for you to discuss. So for me, that you give me the KPI, I need to appraise myself and ask, per my own judgment, how did I perform? Then after that, I'll bring it to my line manager and then we discuss. My line manager will tell me where he agrees or disagrees, and then we sign it off. To avoid instances where people can victimize others, it's always important to have a neutral body So a consistency committee, a consistency team made up of different heads of departments from different sectors who would have to sit and validate what you've done, just to make sure that the basis which was used in doing my evaluation in HR is the same that somebody in finance, somebody in administration used. So there will not be favoritism in any way. After this, if there are some skill gaps that are identified, you make recommendations for trainings. If there are some poor performances, you put them on the performance improvement plan, that is the PIP. And then it's always important I find a way to tie your performance evaluation to compensation. So those who are top performers either get promoted, get certain incentives, get certain merit allowances, certain promotions, find a way to tie it. Because if you are going to put underperformance on PIP, then it's important that top performers are also put on a constructive or a promotional policy. And then those skill gaps you identify, you feed it into your training plan for the next year so that people can get the development they need so they don't repeat the same mistakes. So basically, this is like a skeletal structure for a performance management system.
Wow. Thank you so much. Abu says, good job. Kojo, great job. Okay,
Which
Abu, thank you for coming. Abu is our boss. All right. Okay. All right. So Joel, I see you. Thank you. Kofi, thank you for joining us. Samuel, Sosu, thank you for joining us. Kojo, let's look at how, as HR practitioners or as employers, we can ensure effective performance management. How can we ensure briefly so that we can answer questions?
For ensuring it, I just think two ways. One, just making sure you have the commitment of all other line managers. Because performance management is not the duty of HR. HR is supposed to institute the policy, put the framework in place, but implementing it is a responsibility of line managers. You work with the people every day. So getting your line managers to understand and be committed to using it is important. The second one would be making the people see it to be objective and fair. If your staff do not see your performance management system as objective and fair, no matter what you do, they would not see any use. So these are the two key things. Make them see it to be objective and fair, and make sure your line managers who are supposed to implement it are committed and understand it. The other things, though, but these are my top two.
Great. Thank you. Michael says Kojo is top class. It is a privilege to participate in any training that Kojo is resource person because you will come out of that training with a lot of insights that will take you to the next level in your job. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
Right. Elizabeth has a question, Kojo. She says, what is the difference between KPI and target? Maybe you want to take that so that.
Well, some people use it. It depends on the industry or the sector. Some people use it interchangeably, but for me, from a professional point of view, targets are you can call a target a holistic, measurable, a holistic ambition or desire. So I'm giving you a target of 30 million. That's a target I've given to you. My KPI will tell you that 30 million you should bring, maybe it should come at this time of the year or at this time of the month. And so the key performance indicator is very detailed, telling you the how, the when. So for instance, if you have somebody who works in a bank, you can tell the person, well, at the end of the year, I want to make sure your target is 60 million. The person can bring the 60 million in December. He has achieved the target. But the key performance indicator, the KPI, would let you know that 60 million is supposed to be achieved maybe 10 million for every month or 5 million for every month. And that is how it will spread it. So depending on your industry, for production and the fast-moving consumer goods industries, a lot of them use targets. They just use volumes. But it's more professional, it's more advanced and more understanding to use the key performance indicators, where you break them down into the various components.
Right. Thank you. I think we're breaking a bit, but let's look at who says the individual KPI? Is it the supervisor or the employee himself or herself? Could you?
Okay, so on a realistic note, it's supposed to be said by the supervisor, because the supervisor is the one who is supposed to tell. The supervisor knows what the department has to achieve, so the supervisor is the one who will distribute. But practically, You cannot set a KPI for your team member without your team member's involvement. And so, yes, it's set by the supervisor, but there's always a discussion between the supervisor and then the line manager. Because sometimes you can give a certain timeline. The person who does the job will tell you that, look, this timeline is not realistic. And so, yes, you can say it's two-way. Can you hear me, Patricia?
Yes, please, Kojo.
Right.
Okay. Kojo, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Thank you so much. So, Michael says, excellent presentation, Makenate. Great insight. Akino C, I hope I got it right. Says, great presentation, Kojo. Well done. Okay. Let me take a few of the comments. And then, Ebenezer Mwako, thank you for joining us from Konongo. Thank you so much. Right. Vera says she's here. Thank you, Vera. We see you. Right, Kojo, our time is up. If you want more of Kojo on this subject, please register for our upcoming training on performance management, 17th to the 18th of this month, and you get more of Kojo. Kojo, your final words. I want us to wrap up because we are 30 minutes behind. And 3 minutes behind.
Well, so my final words, aside what you just said regards to they signing up for the training, is that let's take performance management serious. It's something. I mean, we keep saying that what is not measured is not done well. So it's important that we take performance management very serious, especially from the point of setting the objectives or the OKRs for people to achieve. And so, yes, if you want to hear more, join us. I'm sure Patricia would mention the date again. Join us and let's have a discussion on how to actually be practical with the putting together of a PMS. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kojo. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Yes, so on the 17th and the 18th of November at the Crystal Palm Hotel, we are having a 2-day practical hands-on. So you come with your laptop, and then we take you through the process. By the time you leave there, you have a performance management policy, you have a structure, you have the tools, you have the templates that you will go out to your organizations and then work with to ensure that you get the best performance management system in place. And then we'll also take you through how you can ensure that your performance management is well implemented and all that. Remember that Standard HR Digest is brought to you by Standard Consult with support from FA Impressions. Please contact FA Impressions on 024-352-6781 for all your designing, branding, and printing needs. Thank you for joining us. We expect many of you, if not all of you, to register for the performance management training program so you get more of what we are talking about. So until we see you again next week, thank you for joining us, and we wish you all the best. May your week be very fruitful and pleasant as well. Thank you. See you again next week. Bye. Thank you for Kojo. Thank you, Kojo, for joining us. Thank you, my administrator, Kofi. You are doing a great job. Thank you, all the people who are behind the team, behind the scene, helping us to get this right. Thank you so much. See you again next week. Bye.